Welcome back to Biohacking Beauty, the podcast where we simplify the science of youthful skin aging and explore the most effective strategies for looking and feeling your best at any age. I'm your host, Amitai Eshel, co founder and CEO of Young Goose Skincare, where we're all about merging innovation with skincare to help you age smarter. Today's episode is an exciting deep dive into the most powerful longevity molecule in the biohacking space called spermidine. And joining us is someone with an incredible scientific background, Melissa Cano, the director of science at Longevity Labs. Melissa is a biochemist and a molecular biologist with over a decade of experience in cellular metabolism, bioenergetics, and advanced biotechnology. Her work has taken her from the cutting edge of algal research in France to gene editing and metabolic engineering in Colorado, and now she's translating that expertise into real world solutions for health and longevity. We're going to talk about what spermidine is, how it supports cellular renewal through autophagy, and what that means for your skin, your energy, and your overall vitality. You'll also learn where to find it naturally, why levels decline as we age, and whether supplementation is the right move for you. Melissa will also explain how her background in science connects directly to skincare and why supporting your cells at a metabolic level is the key to healthy, resilient skin as you age. So, if you're curious about how to biohack your beauty from within, this episode is packed with practical insights you can start using today. Let's get started. Melissa, welcome to the Biohacking Beauty podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Melissa, let's start from the very beginning. Let's start with what is spermidine and why should we care about it in the context of aging?
Right.
And even skin aging, maybe.
Yes, I mean, definitely all part of it. So, spermidine is a very small molecule. It's water soluble. It's found in every living organism on the planet, and it's an essential molecule, meaning you could not live without it. If I were to be magically able to remove all the spermidine in your body right now, you would die, basically. So, there is no cell life without spermidine because it enables a lot of cellular process, including proliferation of cells. So the name of it, you probably guess where it comes from. It does come from sperm because it was first identified in sperm by the guy that invented the microscope, probably was left alone too long in a room.
Van Leeuwenhoek?
Exactly, that guy in the 17th century. And probably, you can imagine a guy left too long with a microscope, eventually is going to look at semen and dirt. And he saw some crystals in it that were later attributed to spermidine. So a molecule, when it's high concentration, tends to crystallize in the right conditions. And so it is present in sperm because it's a molecule that is essential to protect the cell, to keep it useful, basically, to rejuvenate it. So that's why it's essentially found in high concentration in all germ lines, like including wheat germ, which is the highest source of spermidine. So spermidine is in your cells at all time. It is in your blood, it is in your tissues, and you ingest it every day in your food. So you actually rely about a third of your daily needs of spermidine come from your diet. Another third is produced by your gut microbiome, and the last third is produced by your own cells in your body. And so it's a very important molecule in the context of aging too. And that's been shown in the last 15 years. There's like a whole field about it now with spermidine and its anti-aging properties because it activates a process that is called autophagy.
So let's start with autophagy. What is autophagy?
Yeah. So autophagy is an essential process, also cellular process. So can imagine your cell being this encapsulation of all the metabolism that's going on, all the chemical reactions that make your cells alive, or a single cell, but including a collection of cells. And so there's a lot going on in a cell at all time. Protein gets synthesized, a ton of reactions happen.
I think just to maybe have a nice time, like imagining how this goes. We can really talk about like the skin. Like, so for example, what's going on in a skin cell, or in a fibroblast, or
Right. So, I mean, even in a skin cell, right, you have like chemical reactions happening all the time for the cell to perform what it's supposed to do. And a lot of proteins get synthesized at all time. They are going to perform specific roles inside. But they get old, right? I mean, you produce one, and then after, depends which proteins. I mean, they get damaged or they perform their reaction. I mean, nothing is forever, even in a cell. And you need to get rid of those, because otherwise, you can imagine it's just some like junks accumulating in a very small space that is going to impair the proper functioning of everything else. So without autophagy, you wouldn't be able to get rid of this and maintain a proper cellular function. So you have autophagy happening all the time in all the cells of your body, and it's absolutely necessary. And what happens is, when you start getting older, the autophagy process is not as efficient. And that's when you start having a lot of age-related disease linked to an impaired autophagy. In the context of skin, for example, your cells don't renew as well or as fast, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's I sometimes give the example that this is like not necessarily like just a garbage can or the garbage truck. It's more like a chimney. It's more like a fire in a chimney, because you
right.
are eliminating material, but the chimney also pulls the dirt, but also stokes the flame.
Right.
The better autophagy functions, the better our cells, more youthful, but better our cells going to function as well, right?
Absolutely.
And is that why it affects so many other, youthful processes, so many like hallmarks of aging? Is that because of that, elimination of their waste?
100%. So the spermidine is mainly gonna be the main actor of triggering autophagy. And because it is central to the cellular life of any cells of your body, it affects all the parts of your body. So the skin, obviously, but it's also related to how youthful the cells in your heart are going to be. So that's why we know there are also cardioprotective effect of supplementing with spermidine, because it helps just renew all those cells. But beyond, I would say something that is disregarded sometimes, is that it's not only an autophagy inducer. Spermidine is now really considered an antioxidant as well, meaning that it's able to scavenge reactive oxygen species. And we know that in the context of skin, that's extremely important. I mean, there's a lot of other antioxidants that we found in a lot of formulation, including vitamin C. Spermidine is actually more potent as an antioxidant than vitamin C. And it's also has anti-inflammatory properties. And so like it really is this trifecta. I feel like autophagy for sure, but also antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties that make it a powerful anti-aging component.
That's interesting. And within the context of, we say spermidine, but it's a little bit more complicated than just spermidine, right? Because, the a lot of the discussions that, Longevity Labs, aka Spermidine Life, and us, we've had along the years, is kind of trying to explain the difference between synthetic isolated spermidine and a broad spectrum polyamine complex. So maybe we could talk about spermidine as a polyamine, and why does it work better in a context of supporting a supportive complex?
Right. So, okay, spermidine is a very small molecule, and isolated by itself, it's like just a polyamine. So,
Mm-hmm.
meaning it has more than one amino group. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually derived from an amino acid. But it doesn't come by itself. Like nothing is just like pure in nature, and
Yeah.
you actually interconvert in your cells in other polyamine, including putrescine and spermine. And
Yeah.
so the thing as you mentioned, you will find out there on the market synthetic form of spermidine that are
Mm-hmm.
chemically synthesized, and it's going to be pure spermidine. And the reason I would not recommend using those, but it's because first, they're not sometimes they're way too high in concentration, which actually can be deleterious. They're
Mm-hmm.
not in the range of the dietary limits
Yeah.
that we have on a daily basis. But also there is some benefits to those other polyamines. So
Mm-hmm.
the whole spectrum from spermidine, spermine, putrescine is really important. The three of them as
Mm-hmm.
is. Like you don't want to just take one isolate of this. The other thing I would say is that the way it's synthesized, the manufacturing of itself, you're gonna have other junk inside. Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah. What we do at Longevity Lab is that we have a natural extract. As I said, it's found in every living organism, therefore in all food. But the highest
Yeah.
source of it is going to be wheat germ, and that's what we use in Longevity Labs as a source to generate this extract that is almost just a water soluble extract from wheat germ
Mm-hmm.
that is extremely rich in spermidine. So
Yeah. Well, so I understand what you are saying, and our initial interest in spermidine actually wasn't in spermidine, it was in spermine, because most of the research around the benefits of polyamines in the skin is actually spermine.
Mhm.
So yeah.
So they're they actually overlap in a
Yeah.
lot of their in a lot of their properties, I would say. However, spermidine does remain, and because they interconvert in each other,
Yeah.
it's hard, once you either have a topical application, your cells are going to absorb it, they may interconvert in spermidine anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Spermidine, though, to this day, is the direct inducer of autophagy, so the cell renewal we've been talking
Got
about,
it.
because it literally chemically attach itself to a translation factor, which is a protein that is going to activate all the bunch of genes you're going to need
Yeah.
to make this autophagy process happen. So
Yeah.
spermine is also great for other, as an autophagy inducer, but it's going to be indirect because it's going to need to be interconverted to spermidine. But it
Got it.
still is like a part of the good tools of the polyamines for
I
sure.
understand. And before we move on, there are newer evidence showing that it is amazing for mitochondrial health, right?
Absolutely. So the reason for that is because autophagy is actually a generic term to talk about recycling of components. But what is it going to recycle technically in this autophagy? It's going to recycle proteins,
Mm-hmm.
lipids, even DNA, get rid of
Mm-hmm.
pathogen, but it's also going to recycle organelles. So
Yeah.
organelles including mitochondria.
Mm-hmm.
So spermidine does not only activate autophagy, it activates mitophagy.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing it does through this translation factor I mentioned before, that it's going to attach itself to and activate, this translation factor is going to trigger the synthesis of essential mitochondrial protein that are essential for the function of the mitochondria. So it does directly enhance mitochondrial function as well. So
Yeah.
not only does it help renew proper functioning mitochondria, it helps get rid of the old ones. So it directly impacts mitochondrial health for sure.
Yeah. It's funny that I think one of the talking points, I do think so, that should be discussed more in longevity science is less focusing on specific mechanisms and more trying to find a upstream molecules that act more upstream, which means they affect many
Right.
processes at once. And that's why I'm in love with spermidine. Aside from, we'll talk about with skin benefits a bit more later, but that's why I'm in love with spermidine. Because I'll give an example. So if you don't know, it's a good time to tell you that there is a company, the company that that made a postbiotic called MitoPure famous.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the postbiotic cost urolithin, but the company is called MitoPure. Nestle invested. Nestle bought them, so they are owned by Nestle. That's why they become popular, because Nestle can pay Andrew Huberman to talk about them or whatever.
Right.
And then L'Oreal invested $66 million in that company.
Yeah.
So that's why they have skincare now, because L'Oreal invested in it. But really, it does only it purports to do only one thing, which is mitophagy.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because, I mean, how can they just pass next to the proverbial incredible molecule in the room and not so crazy on that? It's like it covers that base and so many more bases.
Yeah.
Obviously, talking about spermidine, that's what I mean. I'm in love with spermidine. I think it's the most important longevity molecule there is.
Absolutely.
So I wonder, and that's a question we obviously get asked a lot around the conversation of NAD. But why does spermidine levels decline with age?
Right. So there's not like an exact answer. It might be a combination of factors. First, you may not absorb it as well through your food. So may not pass the digestive tract that easily to get into your bloodstream to then get distributed to all your cells. That's one thing. The microbiome also changes with age. So a lot, like I said, a third of your daily needs of spermidine, they come from your microbiome. So it could be also that it's not as efficient as producing enough to maintain proper levels.
Yeah.
The third aspect of it, there is an enzyme that is rate limiting to the synthesis in your cell, because that's the last third of your daily need of spermidine comes from your internal production, from arginine, which is an amino acid. And this the levels of this enzyme decrease with age, like a lot of things, right? I mean, they just don't get produced as well as we fall apart little by little in life. So you become more reliant on your dietary intake, because that's what's really going to make you have the edge on the decrease of your internal production and your gut microbiome. So that's why we say when you get later in life, and later in life, unfortunately, it starts not that late. It starts already in your mid-30s, late 30s. That's when we start seeing decrease of spermidine levels. And that's when supplementation can become handy in maintaining levels high enough that you have an efficient autophagy at all time to maintain all those proper cellular function going on. So,
and I think so. So I want to talk about studies, but I think it's important to note that that's at least from Herbert, which is the co-founder of Longevity Lab. He told me that there is a new study. I don't know if it's out yet or it's still in the works, but that shows that you need spermidine even in the epigenetic or the genetic level in order to even express autophagy. Meaning that people obviously are doing long fasts or water fasts or whatever in order to trigger autophagy. But if you don't have enough spermidine in circulation, you're not even going to trigger it, even if you fasted until you die.
So that's a very I'm happy you brought this up, because this is a very excellent paper. It was published by and it's out. It was published last August 2024 in Nature Cell Biology, which is a great journal, as you know. And it showed in this paper that when you fast, so it was showed in the paper in humans, that when they fast, when they go through a caloric restriction, so you don't ingest food for, say, I think it was 12 to 16 hours in the paper, your internal spermidine levels increase. And that's the link between you triggering the autophagy process. So just to rewind a little bit. So why do people do fast? Because when your cells are not getting the nutrients they need, they're going to start relying on internal mechanism to recycle what's there and make things anew. They're going to say, okay, I don't have a lot of energy. What can I do with what's inside to continue functioning properly?
Yeah.
And that's when the autophagy process kicks in. So most of the benefits of fasting come from triggering autophagy. And what this paper really showed very well in humans, but also like in model organisms in the same paper, is that when you when you go through a caloric restriction or fasting, the spermidine levels increase. So the cell produces more spermidine to trigger this autophagy. So spermidine is not just a trigger of autophagy. It actually is one of the main enablers, like one link, right, between the caloric restriction, the fasting, and the autophagy process. So because of that, spermidine is considered a caloric restriction mimetic. So you probably heard this term, and there are others that are known that in this category, like rapamycin, metformin. But what do they do really? They directly affect pathway. One is going to be mTOR, so rapamycin is going to affect mTOR. Metformin is going to go through the AMPK pathway. So all those pathways, at the end of the day, they converge down the same thing, which is triggering autophagy. So they also affect other factors that are going to affect the expression of a bunch of genes, but really the main process that is going to be triggered by the either inhibition or activation of those pathways is going to be the autophagy process. So at the end of the day, they all converge into the same spot that is this recycling.
So when we look at let's say rapamycin, and we look at its effects on mTOR, which lead to elimination of senescent cells, is it through the activation of autophagy?
Exactly that. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So where are we now as far as like spermidine in spermidine and longevity in animal and human studies? Where how many what is the has the burden of evidence been met? Like how far along are we in understanding that?
So I mean, I would say in the last 2025, probably in the last 10 years, there's been about 1,500 papers published on spermidine and its effect not only on anti-aging but also the benefits in general on health. I would say that it is clear now that in animal models, so flies, mice, worms, that supplementing with spermidine extends the lifespan of those organisms from 5 to 20%, which is quite significant. What we don't have, obviously, is the same comparable studies in humans for obvious reasons, because, well, first time and also ethical reasons as well. It's going to be hard to perform the same experiments on humans. What we do know, though, is that we have epidemiological studies that have shown that diets that are high in spermidine are correlated to increased lifespan in people that consume foods that are high in spermidine. From I think 5 to 10 years extension, depending on the people. Again, that is a correlation, not just not a direct causation, but it is important to note that in the so-called blue zone or that consume or in Mediterranean diet, spermidine is very high because again, it's going to be found in wheat germ, which obviously is not the base of most people's diets, but it's also very high in legumes, in cruciferous, in what else? Soybeans. What did I miss? Anyway, all the foods that we know we should be eating in the first place, that we all know now that are the base of a healthy lifestyle, are very rich in spermidine. So to go back to your question, where are we? Algae too, yes. So you can also make spermidine from algae for sure. Where are we now? What we're missing, I think, is more clinical trials. The thing is, you need a lot of money to make clinical trials. We have about a dozen of those with our specific wheat germ extract at Longevity Lab, so with the spermidine life extract. And we've seen improvement in humans. So I'm talking about clinical trials in cognitive functions in people that had cognitive decline.
Yeah.
We've seen improvement. So we have a clinical trial that's shown improvement in the texture of the skin. So relevant more like to what you guys do.
Yeah.
And that was the origin of this relationship, right? Because of like the autophagy process, etc. We've seen improvement in so one thing that is not completely out, I don't know, hopefully I don't get shouted out for talking about it, but we have like upcoming studies that will be published soon. They're in peer review right now, but like the preprints are out there, so I think it's okay to talk about it, that show also an alleviation of depression symptoms.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, like depression is linked to a disrupted polyamine metabolism. And we've shown that supplementing with spermidine in the span of 3 months of supplementation was able to alleviate depression symptoms to the same level as other antidepressants. So that's another thing. The other one that's very interesting also is it boosts the immune system. So that's another study that will come out later this year, hopefully. In the term of aging, I think we need more clinical trials, especially in terms of dosing. So spermidine, the spermidine proposed the supplement is very much into the range of what you should be taking every day in your diet. So at best, it doubles what you should be taking or less. But it would be interesting to go a little bit more, or like to do a range of saying, okay, we take 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. Do you see an increase in the effects, whether it's on like the skin, right, or cardioprotection, neuroprotection effects? So that would be, I think, the next frontier for the use of spermidine, or like the research as far as it goes, for sure.
I understand. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about, skin aging mechanisms. Because we do talk a lot about biohacking from the inside out in this show. So what does spermidine actually do to the skin when we supplement with it? As far as like collagen production or maintenance, skin cell turnover, hydration, what's going on there?
So, I mean, there are actually papers, and we could link them with the show, that have shown that supplementation of spermidine helps. It actually upregulates, so meaning it increases the expressions of 2 types of collagen proteins, so type 1 and type 3. So it does improve the production of collagen. So that's one thing. It improves also the production of elastin, which is another component below your skin surface that help basically maintain the structure. So you can imagine like a brick and mortar type of structure below your skin that helps it keep it plump and young. So it does upregulate the expression of the genes also necessary for this. In terms of hydration, it also helps retain because it protects the skin barrier, is strengthening by increasing the production of some lipids as well. And the turnover also that it allows by recycling the old stuff and making cells anew, it helps strengthen your skin barrier. So it's going to help retain more moisture. So from the inside out, it's definitely going to help maintain a healthy skin, but also in the same way a topical application is going to have a similar effect, because I mean, you know that better than anyone. Your skin absorbs a lot of things, right? And spermidine is a molecule small enough that it is absorbed easily, right, through the skin.
And of course, we have, as you mentioned before, the reducing of oxidative stress and inflammation, which in the skin is important, both, from the outside in and from the inside out.
Absolutely. And there are other papers that show that very well, that it helps get rid of hydrogen peroxide, which is one of those reactive oxygen species, very well. And that it helps also wound closure. So there was an experiment that was done in mice where they showed that topical application of spermidine, as well as consumption, so through oral intake, going through your bloodstream, help accelerate the healing of wounds in at least in the mice models.
Yeah.
Because of all those benefits. So
Yeah.
definitely very important for skin health.
Yeah, and something cool about skin is that, as animals grow larger, it's very difficult to infer, the action of a drug on a small organism rather than compared to a larger organism. But when we discuss a cell like the skin, actually the correlation is or the inference is much easier, right? Like we can see much more consistent results going from small to big, if you will.
Right.
So you mentioned the study kind of looking at both topical and oral. Are there any other studies looking at topical versus or topical and oral spermidine?
So in terms of skin or anything else?
In terms of dermatological use, yeah, for skin, yeah.
So that's the thing. There is not like 1,500 papers on the skin and spermidine.
Yeah.
So that's another frontier also. To go back to your previous question, like where do we stand?
Yeah.
I feel like there would be so much more to do with spermidine and topical application. We've seen with our own product, we've done a clinical trials where we've seen an improvement in the texture of the skin, in wrinkles after topical application, for sure. One of the study I mentioned also did show that there was an improvement in hydration, in elasticity, and reduction in transdermal water loss, which is related to hydration, right? So as far as skin goes, that's pretty much at least what I'm aware of. I know there is other part, but it's always related to the same thing. Because it's such a central process to cellular health, this autophagy process, that it's also, there's a very recent paper that showed that topical application, or at least injection in the gums, in mice that had gum disease, helped basically get rid of the senescent cells and help reproduce. So the gum tissue, right? So I mean, it's kind of part of the skin, it's a bit more under, but it's like related, right? So but that's another study that was very interesting.
That's how red light therapy started, or kind of got most of its hype, is by looking at intraoral applications. And for maybe 10 years, it was mainly what it was used for. Yeah, and then people that often quote NASA saying, "Oh, NASA used red light." It's mainly not NASA using red light per se. It's NASA quoting the fact that you could use you could use red light or low level laser therapy to
red light is great. I tried to do it a couple of times a week. It's I feel like it's helping, like in the skincare in general, for sure.
Apropos, there is, you mentioned the fact that our gut microbiome is really supporting our spermidine levels. There is also our skin microbiome that really enjoys the application of spermidine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, you're probably referring to one of the studies that showed that they were applying an extract coming from bacteria that were, so a lot of bacteria produce a lot of spermidine.
Was it streptococcus? What was the bacteria?
Yeah, it was streptococcus species. And that applying it. So I don't remember if they were applying it directly or if they were extracting it, but nevertheless, I mean, it's linked to the production of spermidine by those bacteria that was helping with those parameters we were talking about, like elasticity and hydration, etc. So the gut microbiome is one thing, but you also have your skin microbiome as well. I would say, though, I am not really aware, and I don't know the extent of the literature about the actual production of spermidine by your skin microbiome. So
I agree. I don't know that either. And skin microbiome is definitely a different animal, no pun intended, than the gut. But I think it's really cool that that I think this is a cornerstone study showing that, topical application of spermidine without needles, without anything else,
Right.
has improved, skin characteristics that are associated with aging. So there
Absolutely.
is a really cool correlation there.
Yeah.
And would it help, however, gut healthy, us consuming uh polyamines such as spermidine, spermine, putrescine? Would it support gut health or improve gut health?
Yes, yeah. There are some studies out there that shows like that supplementation of spermidine does help repopulate your gut microbiome with the healthy one. So, like,
Mm,
basically help treat dysbiosis, which is like the overtaking of the bad bacteria with the good ones. So
got it.
we're not the actual mechanism as to how does that happen, like, is not exactly clear, but we do know that spermidine helps with the gut health, with like
Hmm.
just repopulating with good bacteria that also produce spermidine in the end as well. So it's kind of a virtuous cycle. That so one thing that's very interesting to look into is not only supplementing with spermidine as is, but also supplementing with the probiotic that
Yeah.
also produce spermidine to help maintain like this healthy virtuous cycle of spermidine, good
Hmm.
bacteria that produce spermidine that then
Is
so
a specific probiotic or?
so I mean that I'm aware of, there is none, but like that we know of some bacteria that can produce that good amount of spermidine. So
Okay, maybe something in the future. Uh, s-
maybe.
yeah. So let's say someone's listening in, just, they're just starting out.
Oh, yeah.
What's your ideal protocol for someone that is new to spermidine? Whether they're
Right.
using, maybe they like our skincare and they understand, hey, a lot of the benefits I'm getting is because of spermidine, or I
Right.
tried internally. What is your ideal protocol?
So just to give a bit of sense of amounts, in your food every day you're gonna intake about 6 to 12 milligram of spermidine. Could go a little bit higher if you are in the Mediterranean type of diet, like the very good one. But
Hmm.
let's say 6 to 12. We have like supplements that start at 1 milligram. And the very first clinical trials we've done were done at this dosage. So 1 milligram of daily spermidine supplementation. And we had already seen very positive effects.
Got it.
Now, we have products that also go to 2 milligram, 3 milligram, and the maximum dose we have is 6 milligram, which more or less correspond what you should be intaking every day.
Got it.
What I would say is that when you want to kickstart your journey on a supplement, and again, keep in mind it's a supplement that is not foreign to your cells, they already see it every day. It's just
Yeah.
going to help them. I take it up a notch a little bit. I would always recommend to go with a higher dose, also because one thing that's very important to put out there is that out of all the longevity supplement we can think of, spermidine is the safest or among the safest. There is
Got it.
no negative side effects that are known so far from supplementing again with natural spermidine, and that will be my little asterisk here. So keep it natural spermidine, not like the
Hmm.
synthetic form, again, because the dosage also can be much higher, which
Yeah.
we want to stay in the healthy range here. There is no negative side effect. Is the safest longevity supplement. There's actually a paper that was going through a bunch of all the longevity supplement they could think of, and spermidine was like at the top of the
Got
safest.
it. Also, the one that acts on the most hallmarks hallmarks of
Yeah,
aging, because
yeah,
autophagy is so important.
absolutely.
Um, how about timing?
Mhm.
Without food, when? I
Right.
I was taking it always. I think I'm now vindicated, but I always felt it helped me with sleep. But I think now there is actually a study that came out that it does actually support sleep, right?
It does, yeah. And
Yeah.
we're actually have in the works also to study with our own supplement for sleep, actually.
Uh-huh.
But I will be honest that if I've noticed this as well at the very beginning. The effect on sleep kind of faded also because probably I have two little kids that don't sleep.
Yeah. Tell me about
So
it.
maybe I'm not a good control for this.
Tell me about it. Maybe I should give it to Lev, our kid, because he needs it. Let me tell you.
The molecular mechanism behind why it would help for sleep, we're not really sure, but it seems to be helping with sleep. We have a lot of people reporting this back to us, especially the very first times they take it.
Got it.
So I take it before going to bed, mainly because before that, my day is so crazy. I never have time to take my supplements or my vitamins. There is no known studies or data that we have internally in the company that would argue towards taking it either in the morning, midday, or night. So my take on this is just take it when you can, when it's more convenient, for sure. You can
Got it.
even take it in your coffee because it's pretty stable at high temperature for a good
Really?
amount of time. Yeah, it's pretty stable. Now, I don't know. I'm pretty specific about my coffee, so I don't put anything in it. But like some people ask me sometimes, I'm like,
Okay.
"Can I take in my coffee?" Yeah, you can take it. We have data that show that the molecule is pretty stable for like a 30
Nice.
minutes at 95 degrees Celsius. So like it should be fine in your coffee.
95 degree, by the way, to those who are listening to us.
Yes.
200, 205
About, yeah.
Fahrenheit.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, you're almost at boiling temperature. So, your coffee,
Yeah.
I hope you don't take at boiling temperature. So, you should be fine in coffee temperature to have your
Yeah.
spermidine.
If your tongue is fine, spermidine's fine.
Exactly. And that's a very good way to put it. So, any
Yeah.
time of the day really is my take on it.
Got
And
it.
you can take it with food or without food. I would say, I don't know, like I'm trying to think about it. If maybe your digestive tract is full of other things, maybe the absorption of a specific compound is not going to be as good. The fact that it's not a liposoluble protein molecule, like you would think of resveratrol, for example, you absolutely want to take with some fat because otherwise it's
Yes.
not going to go
Yeah.
properly into your system. Spermidine is water soluble, so I would imagine that would be fine by itself,
Got
and
it.
maybe might even help with absorbing most of it. So yeah.
You actually are kind of segueing to my next question, which is synergistic compounds. So, for
Right.
example, obviously in our skincare, we have things like, different peptides or fermented resveratrol in microencapsulated NAD precursors, things like that. So is there any synergy orally between like spermidine and resveratrol or NMN, for example, or any other NAD precursors or anything really?
So yes, there is a study out there that shows synergistic properties with resveratrol for
Mhm.
sure, that it both, but again, because they both converge into at the end the same thing, which is helping this autophagy
Yeah.
process. So there is a study out there, and I could find it, like I don't remember exactly
Hmm.
uh, in which context it was done, but there that showed that both helped towards
Got it.
those property. And we have actually done some study with NAD and spermidine. So NAD and spermidine is actually interesting. They have synergistic compound properties because spermidine actually relies on NAD
Hmm.
to be metabolized properly.
Hmm.
So absolutely, if you supplement with spermidine, it could never hurt to supplement with either NAD or a precursor of it. I would say a precursor is
Yeah.
better, especially taken orally, just because to be uptaken by the cell, you kind of want the precursor that gets into it more easily than the big NAD molecule, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
big
For
to
sure.
be actually taken up. So, and we have a pattern actually that shows protective effect on the heart specifically, but it would probably go for other cells of NAD and spermidine. So yes,
Nice.
absolutely, they work together.
So, how long before results are noticeable, especially for skin, hair, sleep, focus, nails?
Right. So, I mean, okay, let's think about this. I mean, the cells that are gonna renew the fastest are probably gonna
Hmm.
be your hair, your nail, and maybe your skin in the same trifecta.
Yeah.
So, I would say about a month into it, you should start seeing effects. Especially, so the first thing people are going to notice is probably going to be the nails, because it's the thing that grows
Yeah.
fastest, right? And so most people that report back to us after starting their journey in supplementing with spermidine, they do report like stronger nails, and they grow faster as well. The hair is going to be another one. So people are going to see either faster growth, but also repigmentation as well. And that
Yeah.
goes back to the senescent, getting rid of the
Yeah.
senescent cells, because it's going to help push back the follicle into its growth phase, which
Hmm.
is also the phase where it produces melanin. So it can help with repigmentation. And the skin is going to be more or less in the same time frame. So let's say 3-4 weeks into taking it, you should already start getting notable effects from,
Got it.
yeah, a good supplementation. Again, it's all dose dependent, so that's why I always recommend go with the highest dose, that we propose, which is 6 milligram. Like, be careful out there on the market. There are people that sell you a 40 milligram daily spermidine supplement that is chemically synthesized. I wouldn't go that high. Like,
Yeah.
I would go the highest dose of the dose we propose, which is dietary dose, let's say.
I was doing 12 by you. I was taking
12 is still
two
fine, yeah.
packets, 2 packets of you guys is 6. Um,
That's a
but I actually think 6 was more beneficial for me.
oh yeah,
Yeah. So any age specific recommendation? For example, I think I started taking spermidine when I was 35, like 4 years ago.
perfect age.
Um, how about people that are more looking for prevention at their 20s, or even people who
Right,
are on the other side of that,
right.
in their
I mean,
later
technically,
in life.
yeah. Technically, you start getting all at 25, right? I think
Yeah.
that's right about when things peaked,
I
and then like it's all the way
I
downhill from
would
there.
I would argue probably 19, which is the peak of your reproductive
Yeah,
health.
also. So, I mean, there is, because it's a safe supplement, you can probably start supplementing in your 20s. I think it becomes important to either really mind your food or your dietary intake. So eating the proper the foods that contain high spermidine, and to supplement in your 30s, early 30s, definitely by your 40s. It's actually something I think that should be recommended in general to people over 40 to supplement for sure, because you will see the benefits. And I would say, like, it start becoming more evident, the benefits, the older you get, because
Yeah.
that's when really the lack is showing, right? When your internal production of spermidine is not as efficient, um, your gut microbiome doesn't produce as well. Like, supplementing become more obvious later in age, but definitely you can start supplementing for prevention before, for sure.
Got it. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what you guys are experiencing on a daily basis. If you were a skincare company, I have a million stories on how the products improved, skin elasticity or fine lines or things like that. Even people reporting that they use it, they use our serum with spermidine in their hair.
Oh, really? I
Yeah,
haven't heard that one.
but let's talk about what's some anecdotal stories that you guys hear from Spermidine Life customers.
um Well, we have a lot of people going back to us with, like, just repigmentation, which is always
Uh-huh.
fun, because I mean they get
Let's
like, oh my
let's note that we're talking about about the hair here,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
because in the skin it's not necessarily a
No, no,
good
it's
thing.
not gonna be as good for sure. Well, it depends how, where, and in which
Yeah,
conditions, but
yeah,
definitely the hair pigmentation is a good thing. To be honest, for us, the good feedback, and the one that makes us happy, is usually older people that are in their 60s, that just like get back a boost of energy from
yeah,
supplementing, like just an overall well-being, and they're just so happy to share, they want to tell you. So, like, there's
yeah.
always a fun and nice exchange here. um, that is very fun. As far as crazy stories. I mean, we have people that have tried that do open the capsule and mix it with a cream for sure, like their daily moisturizer, which is a good thing, I guess. But like they could also just use your
Yeah.
products.
You
In
know
this
what?
case,
That's funny because it's very hard to make it disperse evenly in a cream.
right?
Like that
Yeah,
was one of our
yeah,
the hardest challenges.
yeah. Hmm.
And I'm like, first of all, it actually costs more if you do that, if you break open the capsule.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good. I remember like shout out to Magdalena. She's from Slovenia or something like that. Like she's from the Balkans. She's like this, this hero of longevity in Europe. And she was opening capsules and putting it. She was one of our inspirations to actually
Oh
make
wow.
this collaboration. And I remember how difficult it was for her, like how long she needed to massage it in the skin. Even us, every time we do like a prototype of a new product that has the spermidine, it's a challenge, like to get it to emulsify properly.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, just like to remind people that are listening, it's not pure spermidine; it's a wheat germ extract. So there's a bunch of other things from the wheat germ, like natural
Yeah,
extract, that I mean, you do need to get in there, especially for the skin. You want
yeah,
the most homogeneous texture for
yeah.
it. So yeah,
I would say, we did mention wheat germ a few times. I would say one thing about skin, like so some people are worried about gluten.
right.
So as far as the skin, and I'm quoting now the celiac American Celiac Association. I might be butchering their name, but the Canadian Celiac Association, and basically every big organization that refers to gluten sensitivities and intolerance. There is no gluten doesn't cross the skin barrier, so that is not an issue
Hmm.
with skin specifically. But do you have any guidelines around gluten and gluten sensitivity and taking spermidine live?
Right. Um, so there is still a little bit of gluten in wheat germ. There is
All
way
right.
less than in wheat, but there
Mhm,
will always be a little bit left.
mhm.
Uh, what we know from people that have gluten sensitivity, and I'm just going to highlight sensitivity, is that taking our supplement is usually fine. We have actually never had anyone with a gluten sensitivity taking our product and reporting bad negative effects.
Yeah,
With that being said, because it's a little bit extreme on the spectrum of gluten sensitivity, celiac disease, we usually do not recommend, just because there will always be a little bit leftover of gluten in the wheat germ extract. So we don't recommend it. That
yeah,
being said, there is evidence out there that spermidine may help with gluten intolerance. And the way it would work is because it kind of is a competitive inhibitor of an enzyme that transform gluten into the peptide that is going to trigger the immune response leading to the gluten sensitivity. So it could help actually spermidine. And I mean, she explained it way better than I did. Dr. Elizabeth Yurth from the
yeah,
Boulder Longevity Institute. She has a little piece about explaining this. She's a medical doctor, so she
yeah.
explained it better than I did on.
Shout out to Betsy Earth.
Yes. So she will explain that better, but it could help with gluten sensitivity. Now, just because out of caution and because I'm not an MD, I would not recommend it to someone that has celiac disease.
Got you.
Mhm.
Okay. So maybe lastly, what is your personal skin and longevity stack right now? What do you do?
So first on my list would be something unfortunately I don't have right now, which is good sleep. Nothing beats good sleep
Yeah.
for a good beauty routine. So that would be on my
Listen. Yesterday, Anastasia, this morning, very early in the morning, she had a podcast interview with Jody Duval. She's in Australia, and she's like, "Hey, can you go over the questions? Me prepare." And 10 minutes into it, I'm hunched over, I'm looking at the question, and I suddenly hear, "Are you asleep?" And I was probably asleep for like, she was talking to me for like 5 minutes. I feel you. I feel you.
I have
Okay.
these crazy micro dreams through when I fall asleep randomly like this. But yeah, anyway, sleep would be a great one. Another one,
Yeah.
definitely water for sure. And
Mhm.
I live in Colorado, so I always remember drinking water because it's so dry here anyway.
Yes.
As far as skincare, definitely I've done a lot, tried a lot, and I think with older age and wisdom, I'm trying to be more simple now. So a good cleansing at night with a gentle cleanser for sure.
Mhm.
Try to stay a good minute on it to clean. And then I try to be simple now. So I definitely use your product every other day. I try to alternate. I
Yeah.
try not to have the same routine every day, at least in terms of a topical application, but definitely use that. But also use niacinamide serum. I like that a
Yeah.
lot. I feel it works on me at least pretty well. And then a good moisturizer. I do like a couple of 2-3 times a week chemical exfoliation, so maybe a little bit of glycolic acid or
Mhm.
lactic acid before applying my serum and my moisturizer.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and in the morning in Colorado, very sunny like today, so SPF for sure.
Got it.
And I try to keep it simple, yeah, just not more.
Sounds good. Uh, let's see what else. Let's do a few like rapid fire questions just to
Okay.
close it. Probably things that we covered, but just so we have it in as a recap.
Yeah.
So best time of day to take spermidine.
Anytime is the best
Anytime.
time. Just
Good.
take it. And consistency. Take it
Good.
every day.
Great. Good food sources of spermidine.
Don't skip the cruciferous, the legumes, the beans.
Mhm.
Definitely aged cheese too. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm from France, so like that was the best thing I've ever heard when I knew there was a lot of spermidine aged cheese. So don't skip your cheese.
Yeah. Spermidine for women versus men. Any differences?
I would say, I mean, we all get benefits from autophagy. There is no differences in terms of, at least that we know, in terms of intake. I would say both would benefit from it. There might be specific effects in women, obviously, because of the biology is different, especially in terms of. So actually, to go back to your question before, we have had some women report back to us that he helped them. They're convinced, at least, he helped them conceive. To start supplementing with spermidine. So, and that would not be completely far out because there are some studies that show that it helps with fertility in mice to supplement with
Uh-huh.
spermidine. So that would be one thing for women. It could definitely help them to keep supplementing to stay fertile longer. So that would be something
Indeed.
that would be specific to women for sure.
Okay, spermidine for hair loss. We talked about pigmentation. Spermidine for hair loss. Any
Right.
any results? Any anecdotal science? Any studies there?
There is studies out there that do show that it helps push back the hair follicle into its growth phase. So
Yes.
it can definitely help with hair loss. Now, I will not stand here and tell you that if you're completely bald, it's going to reverse it 100%. I actually do not know of anything that could do that, but
Yeah.
it definitely could help support the hair growth for sure.
Yes.
So definitely.
Okay. Lastly, one myth about spermidine you want to bust. It can be, by the way, that
But
again.
that taking it, oh my God, how can I say this?
Yeah.
That there is not, let's say it like this, there is not enough spermidine in sperm to consider anything else than
Uh-huh.
supplementation from wheat germ, is what I will
Uh-huh.
say.
Uh-huh. 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 Yeah, we definitely get a lot of people talking with us about that.
You have no idea how many times I get this question on a weekly basis.
Okay, so to recap, closing takeaways.
Right.
I think the biggest insights that we can take out of this conversation is, first of all, that spermidine enhances autophagy and slows skin aging down,
Yep.
and that it is important for any other any other cellular function that require maintenance.
Absolutely.
That cellular cleanup equals youthful function, both inside and out.
Mm-hmm.
And that the practical protocol is start high and keep it consistent.
Absolutely. You got it.
Yeah. Okay. So how can people? I know that we prepared a special coupon code. I don't know if you have it ready.
Ooh.
I can.
You got me on that one.
Yeah. Don't
I
worry.
think it was.
Shout out to Olia.
Yeah, our
She
dear Olia.
prepared something called Young Life.
That's what it is. Young life.
Will
Ooh, see,
give
that's where the scientist is just like out of her depth here.
Yeah, exactly. Young Life, all caps,
Okay.
will give you 20% off Spermidine Life products. And you can find it. What is the website?
So spermidinelife.us is where
Yes.
you will find us. Yeah.
Cool. Obviously follow on social media, all the other things. Guys, this is really my favorite thing that we've ever dealt with, this collaboration. So thank you very much, Melissa. That was a pleasure and very fun to nerd out about spermidine with you.
Thank you very much for having me. It was fun.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone.